radical change. And there's a question there about what's going to fill the gap. So the theme for this presentation is, where do we go after my empty space? What's going to fill the gap for that social network inside, that de facto music player, that people like unsigned bands, like you guys in the audience who came and paid, as opposed to blagging the guest list off me, all three of you. What are you going to use to get that exposure, build that fan base, and grow your careers? So the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to give you a very quick sort of backdrop presentation. I'm going to try to introduce 4 economic concepts that will help you understand and differentiate these products that we're going to be discussing today. And then Ian Rogers is going to come over, he's flown all the way from California to be here and take you through Topspin, and then we're going to invite Soundcloud and Bandcamp onto the stage. So we've got 3 of the most prominent services up on stage to debate this with you guys. So the first point I want to make is on the 8th day, God did not create MySpace. There was something before that, and if we look at this slide here, we have services to the left and networks and communities to the right, and we're going to roll from 97 to 2009. And you can see that CD Baby was there first, followed by MySpace, and then you can work your way through the list of TuneCore to YouTube, and then if we look at the next, from those 3 there, we have the Topspin, Bandcamp, and Soundcloud launching in this period here, followed by Mobile Roadie, and importantly, Root Music. And Root Music's interesting because Facebook's got 560 million friends, that's the largest audience this side of the Super Bowl, and Root Music is just sitting on Facebook and developing something which looks and feels kind of like what MySpace used to be. So that's an interesting backdrop to give context for this presentation. Now, where did the inspiration come from to look at the problems facing MySpace now and what could fill the gap going forward? Well, I want to flag up an essay by a blogger called Andrew Dubber, who's going to join us later, and the essay was just one of the most powerful pieces of music journalism I ever read. It was called MySpace Now with Glitter, and the analogy being you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it around in glitter. In this essay, and I really recommend you guys hunt it up on the web and you read it, he makes a really wonderful point, which is, take an unsigned band that's got a MySpace page. How much would that unsigned band have to pay MySpace Corporation, owned by Rupert Murdoch, to remove Nestle from its wallpaper behind its site? Which is a clever question, right? Well, presumably you're going to have to pay more than the CPMs that Nestle are paying, but then again, where's the flow of funds here? Where's the return? And I think when you unwind that point, you can understand what seems to have gone wrong there. And that's where we have our story, which is now you've got a huge explosion of services filling that gap. Now, as we look at these services, I'm already hearing what I call tournament talk here, the language of verses, SoundCloud versus Mixcloud. Mixcloud is where you'll find my DJ mixes for a bit of self-promotion. Bandcamp versus, then you might have Bandcamp versus Topspin, Root Music versus Reverb Nation. And this is what I call the Highlander effect, there can only be one. But I just don't really buy that. If we can get anything across in this next hour, it's just to get the word verses and that tournament logic out of your heads, because unsigned artists and people who have maybe got an indie label deal, I mean, this is art that we're talking about, and that can't be commoditized. So we have different artists who require different services. So there is room for more than one, there's room for many, and it's a case of matchmaking. And we just leave this with you for a second. I kind of like this. Apples and oranges, right? So different products for different needs, for different services, for different artists. What is it you actually need from these direct artist to fan tools that we're seeing on the market? And what's the best one for you? Because that's going to lead to the best chance of success, right? So there's not necessarily Bandcamp versus Topspin, it's just understanding how these products differentiate. Differentiating products. You could do something like, how would you differentiate Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper? That's a good one to use. Maybe not so good with Dr. Pepper, at least you know that dude got a degree, which is kind of cool. So we look at this way, and what I'm now going to take you through is 4 economic concepts that will help the discussions that follow on. So we go a little bit deep here and get our head around some economics, then we can come back up for air and start debating with these guys on stage. Here's your first one. Complements or substitutes. A classic economic lecture in your first year at university, if you went to lectures, which I didn't do, where you look at complements or substitutes. And for this purpose, I thought the best way to illustrate this anomaly, or this observation, is alcohol, which is what we're going to be consuming a lot of later on. So here's our example here. We've got gin. And on the left-hand side, you've got an example of a complement. You've got gin and tonic and lemon and lime. So if you were consuming more gin than usual, you'd also be consuming more tonic, more lemon, and more lime. These are complementary goods. The uptake in one leads to the uptake in the other. And then on the right-hand side, we have substitutes, different types of gin, for those who need a fast hit or a slow burn. All these gin, you might have seen work in wallet share, there's a better term for this, they're competing for a throat share, okay? Which type of gin are you going to go for, and then you're going to opt for your complementary goods of lemon, lime, and tonic water. So that's the first one, and we can use alcohol to understand music, as we have done for many years. We can use it in the sense of, does Topspin complement or substitute iota, the orchard, and the independent aggregators? That's something I want to be posing later on. Does Soundcloud complement or substitute MySpace? You may want to probe that one too. Here's just concept number 2, which is bundling in time. Again, this comes from competition law, but to make it really easy, for those who don't know, that's a shoe, and underneath there, you've got a wide variety of laces. Now, to explain bundling in time, I'm going to use this kind of complicated term called foreclosure. Foreclosure means prevention of a market that would otherwise be created. So let's hold that word and go through this quickly. If you go down Oxford Street, you'll see a lot of shoe shops where you buy shoes. And when you buy shoes and you get home and you open the box, you expect the laces to be in there. So what you don't see is a lot of laces shops. All right? We've created foreclosure in the market for laces by bundling the laces in with the shoe. Now, what's that got to do with music? Let's imagine that shoe there is a smartphone. Let's imagine it's the Apple iPhone, and for color coordination on the right-hand side, that blue lace is the iTunes Music Store. If all you could do on the iPhone was use the iTunes Music Store, it would be the same thing as creating foreclosure in the market for laces. There's foreclosure in the market for music services. However, what you've got now is open platforms, so Spotify, if you take green or 7 Digital and red, can all sit on that smartphone device and be consumed by the consumer. So there we've got competition, we've got separation, we've got a thriving market for laces and music, but we don't have it for shoes. Now when you think about SoundCloud for a minute, I think that's the secret to the success of SoundCloud, is because it's sitting on just about every platform going. So, thriving market for laces there. So that's concept number 2. Concept number 3 is looking at how you can price the creators, or the artists, and the consumers, or the fans, differently. And for this, I want to go to Adobe and give you a quick history lesson in Adobe using the demand curve chart, which is a little bit complicated, but I'm going to make it really simple at the end. So Adobe's story is fascinating. When Adobe started out in California as a tech startup company, what they did was they charged the reader to read with Adobe, and they charged the writer to write with Adobe. They charged both sides. And the company was doing pretty well. It was a really good publication software company. Then what happened was that the very smart economists took the company on and said, look, let's drop the price for reader to 0. Now, all price falls to the new price of 0. And then the demand to read with Adobe rocketed from the old quantity of demand right out to the new quantity of demand. Because it was free, everybody wanted to use it. Flip it onto the creator side, and we have the opposite effect. What they were able to do, because everybody wanted to read with Adobe, was charge a premium for you to create with Adobe, because that's what your audience wanted to use. So we had our old price for Adobe, they raised it to a new price, and I call it the economist's wet dream of when you can raise price and find more demand. More people want to use Adobe with that higher price. And a company worth a couple of million turned into a company worth several billion within the space of 13 months. That's really important when you start thinking about Bandcamp, Topspin, Soundcloud, is how do you price these models, sliding scales, sunk costs, upfront fees, and so on. So we can use that when we get into our debate. Last one is just to look at this, which is convergence or divergence. And to do this, I'm going to take you to the beach and ask a question of, over time, do things get more similar or more different as the market unfolds? So we've got a bunch of new services connecting fans to bandits now. How's that going to look in 2 or 3 years' time? So the example, and I can use something here to explain it. The example is, let's think of a beach. We're here in Brighton. Let's think of a beach that's 2 miles long, okay? And people are evenly distributed across the beach. There's no clustering because we all want our fair square share of sand. And on this beach is a monopoly ice cream stall provider. There's only one person selling ice cream on the beach. And the ice cream stall provider locates itself to the north end of the beach. So we've got a 2-mile-long beach, everyone's distributed evenly, and there's only one place you can buy ice cream, and it's at the north end. Now I'm going to deregulate markets, I'm going to introduce competition to this marketplace. and I'm going to introduce a second ice cream stall. Where would the logical, rational place be to put that second ice cream stall? Anyone want to shout it out?
Far away as
So
possible.
some people are shouting south, and that is the rational place for it to go because people are evenly distributed. But what happens is it will go to the south end, but in a bit, which then causes the north end ice cream stall to think, hey, you're pinching some of my customers, and that'll come in a bit too, causing the south end to move in a bit further, to the point where, and if you look at beaches, this is what happens, all the commerce takes in a very confined space. Those ice cream stalls are literally back to back in the middle. Now, what's going on? It goes about ice cream around a music conference. Let's think about this for a minute. The ice cream, the people are evenly distributed across the beach, but all the commerce is taking place in the middle. We've converged on the middle. If we think about radio playlists, why do we always say that radio playlists are so similar? Why do they converge towards the middle? Can we apply that? You think about TV commissioning strategies and the BBC and all these male detective things that they're putting out. Why is it converging towards the middle? When you think about what Topspin, Bandcamp and Soundcloud are doing, amongst others, is they're serving those people on the edge better. So it's a very important story in economics of how markets behave, how you have convergence, which leads to an undesirable outcome. There's a bunch of people on the edge who could be served better. And you can apply that as well. So that's the 4 concepts that we've worked through. Wrapping this part of the presentation up, I just want to make an observation about the state of the market, particularly with the state of breakthrough artists just now, and some work from the BPI. How you define a breakthrough artist is hard. It's really important for this audience. I'd imagine there's quite a few breakthrough bands here. But this is a study that they performed, a great piece of work, which is breakthrough artists who have sold 100,000 albums for the first time since 2004. Now you can look at debut artists, and there's other ways of cutting and slicing the data, but this is their observation, and it's just to make the point that in 2010, which was a shocking year for the music industry overall, breakthrough artists fell to an all-time low. Broadly speaking, there should be at least 25 breakthrough artists in the UK every year. This data is spiky, but there's a bit of a trend there. But now we're down to 17. We take that observation, and just something else I'm seeing, and if I use the band Frightened Rabbit for an example, is more and more bands now are doing 3 albums on an indie label or DIY, and then flipping to a major label for a deal. The point being that, with Frightened Rabbit, 3 albums on Fat Cat, now they're with Warner's. I don't see many bands getting signed by major labels from fresh, which means you're going to have this period of DIY by default. So when we talk about Bandcamp, Soundcloud, Topspin, like them or loathe them, dismiss them or get hype about them, you're going to need them more by default, just to the way the market is currently working. So the objective of what we're going to try and do over the next hour comes down for me for this question here, which is, can we help you, the delegates, that have paid and come, make better make or buy decisions? And we always make make or buy decisions. Do you make your own conservatory, or do you buy someone to do it for you? And we sometimes get make and buy decisions right, and we sometimes get them wrong. But I think what we can do with this panel here, and I think it's relevant, is just trying to make you make better make or buy decisions, to get them right more often as opposed to wrong more often. Now, before handing over to Ian to take you through Topspin as a case in point, I just wanted to flag this up, which is just please remember as we go through this discussion that data matters, okay? And discussing before this presentation some of the language that we still use in the music industry, the one that really gets me is that thing, and I've heard it in the registration queue, it's just, I'm putting a new record out. So, I'm putting a new record out into space, and through some sort of black magic, some money's going to come back to me. Very few businesses work off that. They have data, they have connection with their fans, they know how to upsell, but for some reason that still seems to linger here. I just want to give you a concept which comes from the Googles and Amazons of this world, who have been very successful, which is called exhaust economics. And I'm going to leave you with this slide, which is just to stress, have a think about all the data that large companies and institutions are freeing up and not making use of. Because what Amazon and Google are built off is being able to take that data and put little nickels and dimes on it and turn it into a business. So, looking across the questions, looking for different trends and different ways of looking at it. Now, with data and management, bands can start doing something. And that's why I'm going to ask Ian Rogers to step up and take you through what Topspin is doing with bands today.
So, do a time check here. It's 7 a.m. wherever this recording is. All right, right, so we have a little less than an hour. I'm going to try to go really fast because I just want to queue up some ideas that we can discuss with Dave and with Andrew in a second. So really quickly, I'll tell you what Topspin is in case you don't know. Topspin is direct-to-consumer marketing and retail software. So you use Topspin to be seen and heard, grow the number of fans that you're connected to, and ultimately turn those fans into customers, right? Convert those. We'll talk about that a lot in a second. So I'm actually going to skip. You guys, please go to Topspin Media and you can sign up. Come one, come all. It's open to the public. You're welcome to come and check it out. We have demos and everything else. I'm not going to waste your time by just telling you what it is. Come check it out. What I wanted to do is throw some, potentially, if not controversial, at least maybe contrary to what you might think, topics out there for us to discuss. First of all, and I hope this is good news, but your business, if you're an artist or a label or anyone in the music business at this point, is not 99-cent downloads. We're teaching a course right now at UCLA in Los Angeles, and one of the lead instructors, who's Jeff Jampol, manages the estates of the Doors and Janis Joplin and Peter Tosh and a bunch of others. But he has the students trained. He says, what business are you in? And they all repeat back to him at this point, the tickets and t-shirt business. So he's being intentionally facetious, but he's really trying to get people out of the mindset that recorded music is the entire business, because it's not, it never has been, frankly. We're actually seeing this in the data, as we'll allude to. What you're seeing there in the bar graph is what the average revenue per transaction on Topspin is right now. So across everything we've sold to date, it's 26 bucks. We have a lot of people selling things that are $1. We have entire albums that are being sold for $1, albums being sold for $5. But regardless, across everything that we sold, the revenue per transaction on average is $26. When you look at what we call kind of optimized campaigns, a lot of people would look at it as the kind of typical Topspin campaign. If you go to BeastieBoys.com or My Morning Jacket or a whole bunch of artists that are doing, and you've seen this, it's what Trent Reznor pioneered with the Ghost Project, where you're selling, you've got the digital album for less than $10, and you got something kind of in the $50 price range, or something maybe more expensive, or maybe it's 25 bucks and 60, something like that. We generally see that with the average revenue per transaction above $50 though, which is incredible. You look at something like the Beastie Boys record that we worked on just a couple weeks back, you would be shocked at what percentage of people chose the $75 option. And that's especially meaningful for me. I've worked with the Beastie Boys since 1993, and I think back to even as recently as the album we put out in 2004, and here we've been cultivating these fans on the internet since 1993, and still we were turning to all those fans and trying to sell them one product at one price. It's a $15 CD. I don't care if you're kind of into the band or if you love the band, this is it, buy it. Now we have this ability for fans to self-select kind of where they fall, and it makes a real difference from a revenue perspective. We consistently have new artists telling us where the vast majority of their revenue is from the direct-to-consumer channel. And even large artists, which it's typical that we would be 25% of sales, and the direct-to-fan channel would represent a majority of the revenue from a profit perspective, because it's just an efficient channel. It's more efficient selling somebody a $60 box set and keeping the vast majority of that money through a very efficient both marketing and distribution channel than it is even going into retail where you're giving up 30% plus out of the gate, right? And then if you throw things like tickets into the mix, the average revenue per transaction goes even higher. As you guys are probably aware, but may not be, I think this is green field for pretty much all of us. Connecting directly with fans is the name of the game and what you want to do. I really wanted to call out this funnel that you see at your right. And the reason for that is I feel like too much of the conversation is about that little dot at the bottom. This is really not about e-commerce, because the e-commerce part doesn't matter and doesn't work if you haven't built awareness and built fan connections first. We hear all the time, people like, well, I put some stuff online and it didn't sell. Oh, okay. It won't work, and I'll come back to that in a second. But we've built this to really try to remind people that demand generation is more difficult and more important than demand fulfillment. And that really, I mean, we just see it every day. You know, we've seen huge artists run crap direct-to-fan campaigns, direct-to-consumer campaigns, because they don't have an awareness about what they're doing online, and they don't have their own direct connections with artists, or with their fans, I'm sorry. I wanted to throw out this little bit of advice, which I've continued to share with artists every chance I get, and I continue to share it because I can't tell you how many people come back to me and say that it's helped them. You know, I think that people are generally overwhelmed by all of these tools, all the tools that we're going to discuss today. And they're overwhelmed by the options that they have online. So what we try to do is try to give people a framework to consider the activities that they're doing online. This is one of them. Am I in the awareness building phase? Am I trying to build more fan connections? Or am I, have I done that and now I'm at the point where I actually want to do some commerce? But another one is just get out a calendar and start filling in boxes. I think that if you can do one big thing a month and one small thing every week, it's a great framework to think about how you can take your creativity and take it out and take it out to the people without being incredibly overwhelmed by it. And first of all, if you can't come up with 12 things to do over the next 12 months, you're probably in the wrong line of work. But it is also, don't email your fans every single week either. So think about, I'm going to do one thing a month that's worthy of emailing my fan base. It doesn't have to be, you can obviously slide that a little left or a little right, but just as a general rule, if you're looking for, for a framework, I think this definitely works. And we can talk more about that if you'd like. I won't take you through this, but Yesayer is a great example of a band who's done an incredible job of this. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but it's a great story. A band sold 50,000 records on their own, band and manager. That was the entire team. And they did it in a really methodical way. They had a plan, they stuck to it, and it worked. It's been incredible to watch. But they're really good at this. Do something small, do something big. They're always, and they've never sacrificed the mystique and the brand of the band in the process. They weren't, tweeting about what they had for breakfast. They in fact didn't let any photos of the band out for about the first 12 months. It was part of their plan. So they had a very specific thing that they wanted to accomplish in terms of the way the band was introduced to the market, but they do constantly give something of real value to the fans. Another point I want to make here, to come back to my earlier point about commerce, and commerce being that little and certainly not an unimportant dot, but the dot at the end of the journey, not the beginning. To Will's point from earlier, you have a lot of people who have an album but don't have a fan base, right? Who are selling things before they have fans. Tom Silverman from Tommy Boy Records, who runs the New Music Seminar, I've heard him refer to it as the ready, fire, aim approach. And we see it all the time. It's a terrible idea. I tell people, people come in and the first thing they want to do is sell some shit. And I say, you know what? If you don't have a couple thousand people at least on a mailing list, don't. Actually, give some things away to get there. You need fans, not dollars, in those early days. And Dave was asking me earlier where we came up with that number. We really did just sort of, pick that number based on what we'd seen. But the point is that unless you have some critical mass of fans, you're not going to get what you want out of a direct-to-consumer campaign anyway. And just throwing some tracks on a web page with a buy button, we're not trying to create a new MySpace with buy buttons. That's not much of a step forward. We really need to find ways that people discover music in the landscape where we have empowered consumers with unlimited choice. So last slide before we bring the other folks up. I hope you've seen, and if you haven't, please check out Mike Masnick's presentation and he has multiple ones where he uses this little equation that you can barely see in the upper left here. CWF plus RTB equals dollars. What Mike was getting at was, if you connect with fans and give them a reason to buy, they will, and that's a business. So the notion that people won't pay for things, you know, we all collectively, you know, the people that are on stage here are a testament to the fact that's not true. We're processing people's credit cards all day, every day, and taking money via PayPal all day, every day, with people who are willing to pay, whether it's patronage or it's, you know, it's paying for things that they value, vinyl. You know, I threw up the little play button thing over there. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, but you can go to playbutton.co and check that out as an example of something that is really simple to produce, but has real value and people want. So, you know, the formula is really simple. You know, connect with fans. You know, give them a reason to be connected to you. And if you create something of value, then they will come there. So I'm going to wrap up with that because I want to get to the panel and our questions and your questions as soon as possible.
All you can give her is £6 in HMV, then all she can ever get is £6 for HMV. There's no variable pricing there. What you're doing seems to be an ability to tap into those who are willing to pay. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what the internet does. And I think it was definitely a big lesson for me. I mean, I know when I started with digital music in the early 90s, you know, I had this vision that it was all going to go digital, right? And I think what's panned out on the internet is that what the internet really amounts to is consumer choice. So the fact that, you know, vinyl sales are at an all-time high across the entire industry is testament to the fact that when you can open up distribution, you know, you just have a totally different dynamic. You know, the reason that the music industry got so big was because you did have this really efficient disc, and that disc could be distributed everywhere, and that's where you get the, you know, the dynamic of you know, just a mass market product. And what the internet opens up is this ability to have, you know, non-mass market products, and for fans to kind of self-select. I think it's what Trent Reznor did so well with the Ghost Project. Instead of, you know, the music industry had been saying to fans, you know, come on, pay us for this thing that you know, we know you can get for free, you thieves. And Trent looked at his audience and said, how big a fan are you? You know, if you want it for free, I've got, that's a price point, but I've also got this incredible thing for $300. And there's a limited number of them, and if you're a really big fan, you really want this. And he was right, it's an awesome product.
It's a wee bit of a digression, but one thing that always struck me was, is there a lesson from the book publishers? So at university, I used to always bug out about the fact that a book publisher had a new economics textbook for £300 hardback. And I was like, I'll just wait 3 months and buy the paperback for 30. But if you know there's 3,000 organisations in the UK that need that hardback, libraries, policy groups, think tanks, whatever, I'll take 3,000 times £300, please, and then I'll flood the secondary market for 30. That ability seems to be coming through when I look at what your services are doing. I'm going to go to Dave next. All these people have had incredible journeys to get here, from New York, from California, and from the arsehole of nowhere, Norway, right?
Stavanger is actually a really cool town.
I was going to say, I saw Dave in San Francisco on Saturday. So.
Yeah, it was San Francisco.
All right, Dave, 2 questions for you just to get started. One, what's the secret to SoundCloud success? Because you have suddenly become the de facto player, and it works brilliantly. This morning, 3 email links today which send me to Soundcloud to consume music on the train back. And 2, we go back to shoes and shoelaces. I mean, you're a pretty powerful pair of laces, sitting on just about every shoe possible if I've got it right. Can you just build on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess first of all, it hasn't just been a sudden rise to success. And we're probably getting on more people's radar now than we were 3 years ago. But I mean, we've been doing this for 3.5 years, and you know, we really built it slowly, and it's all been based around the product that we're building. And we're not actually really doing anything like that fancy, you know, conceptually. We've just tried to lower the barriers for somebody to create or upload or record a file onto our platform and then go and share it. And importantly, just that's all we do. You know, it's a toolkit for creators. I think the other thing that we've always done is we've always really focused just on the creators. Like when we get up and we build the product, that's who we're thinking about first. It's our users. I mean, we're slightly different from a Bandcamp or a Topspin, is that we don't actually facilitate the end, you know, kind of revenue part, although that's obviously really important. But for us, that means we don't have to think of anything else. We don't have to, you know, we're not dealing with, you know, processing, you know, like customers' credit cards, although we do process credit cards. And we don't, you know, we're not like shipping anything or fulfilling anything. So the main thing that we are is really just a toolkit for those creators to share their audio. And actually, that's our user base is really widened. We're at 4 million users now. And that isn't just the really, you know, it's not the big top guys, it's just anyone who has audio to share. So we've just built everything around the product, basically.
Let's take it to Andrew Dubber. Andrew, firstly, you better maybe clarify your position within Bandcamp as well. But secondly, we go back to the ice cream stalls on the beach. Where do you see all this going in the context of the word art? I mean, are we going to see more divergent forms of art as a result of fans and bands connecting directly with each other? And lastly, the one that I really struggle with is, what does good look like here? How do I measure success? If more bands are having more sustainable careers with their fan base, and not just Ian made point, it's like there's 2 types of artists, those who want to be on radio and those who don't. But if I don't want to be on radio, and I do use one of these services to fulfill my small fan base, and I've got a full-time job and it's balancing out, then I'm cool. Being a hit is not being a hit is not necessarily a sign of failure. And can you help me sort of get my head around that point?
How long have we got?
Go for it, man.
Okay, the first question that you asked me, if I remember correctly, was what's my relationship with Bandcamp. I'm nominally on the board of advisors for Bandcamp, but I suspect the board of advisors for Bandcamp is just people that Ethan rings up from time to time. The story that he tells was a very flattering story. I wrote a book about 4 years ago called The 20 Things You Must Know About Music Online. And the way that Ethan tells the story, or at least the way he told me the story, was that he had made a piece of software called Oddpost. Yahoo bought it, and now it's called Yahoo Mail. He worked at Yahoo for a while as one of their managers, and then he stopped working at Yahoo for reasons that I didn't explore, and he wanted to work on something new. Theoretically, read my ebook and said, I'm going to turn that into a website, and he built Bandcamp. And so he came back to me afterward and said, I basically turned what you said artists should do online into something that artists can do online. Do you want to be on the board of advisors? And I said, yes. And I think for the first time since they started, I don't know what the timeline was, but you put it up there before, they've got a little bit of money, and for the first time I'm actually going to go out to San Francisco and meet them next week. So that should be cool. It's been Skype until now. But really, it's just been kind of a sounding board, a place for new ideas and so on. Second part of your question?
Just on the convergence and divergence.
Was about economics, and there's a point that I really want to make here, is that there is this presupposition that the internet is a marketplace, and it isn't. It's a way of human beings communicating with each other. Like saying, what's your online strategy? It's like saying, what's your telephone strategy? Or this idea that, you know, having lots of friends is a good marketing strategy. Well, it is, until they find out that they're a marketing strategy, and then they're not your friends anymore. And so this kind of direct-to-fan thing and building relationships with fans is really interesting, because there is that kind of presupposition that you guys are now, you know, now we're mates, and now we're kind of getting on together, and by the way, now I've got something to sell you, and actually that's what really it's all been about all along, which is kind of a weird place to be in. So there's kind of talk of ice cream vans and all the rest of it. At least with ice cream vans, there's a counter and there's a cash register, and there's no kind of pretext about what any of this is about. And so I think that if you do want to put your your music on the internet in order to make money, there are really good e-commerce platforms to do that. I think Topspin's I think that's what it does really, really well, is go, you know, you've got something that you can sell to your fans at all these different kind of price points. This is kind of the ice cream stand. Do you want, you know, a flake with that? What I think SoundCloud's really good at is we're not about selling ice cream. We're about people who love to make ice cream and love to share ingredients with each other or recipes or whatever. And this is a tool that people who make music can do. And what Bandcamp is kind of this way of people just kind of communicating with the outside world. And some of that is for money, but 90%, I would say at a guess, of all the stuff that gets uploaded to Bandcamp is not for sale. It's for free download. It's people. Most people who make music don't do it to make money, and so but that's not what we're talking about here. That's not why people pay 150 quid to come and listen to a bunch of guys talk on the stage. But I think it has to be kind of really underlined here that the internet is not here to fix your business. It's a way of communicating with other human beings, and how you do that intelligently will dictate how successful you are at that. That's not an answer to your question, but something that I want to say.
Actually, if I follow on with that, there's something that actually the manager I mentioned earlier, Jeff Jample, has the way that he's put it is, which is similar but different to what you're saying. I think it's along the same lines. You know, he's talking about his job as a manager and how he often has to talk to artists. You know, first of all, as we've all talked about in the past, it's true that the vast majority of artists aren't going to find themselves in HMV or in the category of successful, and that or successful by the industry's definitions, and that doesn't mean that they're unsuccessful. I mean, am I an unsuccessful guitarist? I mean, I suppose so by the industry's definitions. My 4-year-old thinks I'm all right, and that's fine. You know, there's tens of millions of people who play music, and the numbers that are going to make a living at it are much smaller than that. And even if we all do an incredible job of our jobs, that number, you know, if we tripled that number, we should all be really happy. That number is still going to be very small. So the manager, Jeff Jample, the way he put it is, he's like, look, your art is valid by definition, whatever it is. Your art is valid by definition, and having ways to put it out there are fantastic. And I mean, that was kind of my point too, is Topspin isn't just about commerce. You know, we have, you know, tools to give away music as well, and they're, you know, inexpensive. And if you can build up, you know, if you can build a relationship with people who love your music, it doesn't have to be around vending at the end of the day. But as the manager said, you know, if you're trying to make a living here, okay, now we're vending, right? Now we are talking about commerce. We're talking about careers, and you know, we're going to talk about your art differently. This is coming from a manager as he's talking to his artists.
The best way to catch that point is just to quote was Pete Jeno, one of the legendary managers of our time, founded Pink Floyd in '67. On his business card, on the back of it, had this wonderful expression, "My mission is your commission." So I guess that's what he's doing.
That's exactly right.
There is another way.
He had also had a business card which had on the back, "My hand in your pocket," but that didn't. Real quick, I want to go around the block one more time and get to this audience rapid. And I want to come back to the topic of gin and tonic. Not necessarily asking who are you substituting, but where, for the audience's benefit, are you finding interesting complementary goods? I picked up Iota and the Orchard and the Indie League Libraries, I believe that are here today. We start with you, Ian. Who do you find yourself suddenly thinking, as I'm hitting critical mass, this is actually working out better than I thought? We're providing a service to them, which is allowing them to scale and provide a better service down to the fans.
You know, the most interesting thing for me this year, the big light bulb for me, is talking to a lot of the web development shops that are using our software, who are able to offer, you know, really professional grade, you know, websites to artists. And in particular, the one I thought was really interesting is one of our partners, Eyes and Ears Entertainment out of Chicago. They're selling, you know, a sort of starter kit. You know, you get a website and a store and some marketing, and we're going to do some blog outreach, and it's effectively, you know, just a little bootstrap to get you going. It is kind of a you know, MySpace page plus, right? It's my own homestead on the internet. Don't know if this is going to work, but at least I've got a good net to catch the interest in if it does. And they're offering it for $1,200. And what they're saying is, you know, it sounds like a lot of money to a starting artist. But what they were saying is, we talk to artists every day who are actually saying, we were spending $1,500 on a box of CDs that no one wanted, right? So instead of spending that, you know, that money with, you know, that money pressing 1,000 CDs of the album we just made, the points I was making earlier, spending that on you know, our sort of professional, the sort of the web instantiation of our artistic vision is really meaningful and what they're happy doing.
Cool. Double.
What does Bandcamp work well with?
What's your bottle of tonic?
It's Postgres, Tumblr, WordPress, Vimeo, YouTube, Soundcloud, cameras, flip videos, just tools for making web and communicating with the outside world. And the thing I like about Bandcamp, the thing that I think that Ethan's done really cleverly with it, is it just integrates really well with everything that people who are likely to use it are also likely to use. So it is, if you've got a blog, you can embed your album on it, or your single, or you know, to see your recordings. So yeah, I mean, that's, you know, we play nicely. Also, some other technologies that works really well with microphones, guitars, digital audio workstations. It's part of the whole kind of process, the chain of making music and getting it out there.
How you define that market? So for you, Dave,
Where's
your line?
I just wanted to call out Dubber's son, actually. So what's your son's SoundCloud account?
/Jake Dubber.
Okay, absolutely awesome. Until this afternoon, I didn't even know that he made dubstep, but it's really good, so you should go and check out that on SoundCloud. But I mean, you know, this is an example, and it comes back to your not versus things, but I think a lot of artists and a lot of creators are using all these different tools, but in slightly different ways to kind of, you know, like do different things and reach different audiences. So Jake Dubber, he's a dubstep artist, he's actually on SoundCloud and he's posting all of his music, and you were saying that he actually, you know, a dubstep label had got in touch via SoundCloud to see if he wanted to put his music out, but when he's got something to release, when he's actually got a package, then he's going to go and use something like Bandcamp. So what's his Bandcamp address?
He uses, it's JakeDubber.bandcamp, but he uses SoundCloud to get feedback from peers, and so he shares it on Dubstep Forum and says, this is what I'm working on, what do you guys think? And when he's got enough, like over a 3-month period, he'll collect them all, call it an EP, and release it on Bandcamp and pay whatever you want, including free.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the really important thing to understand about SoundCloud is we're really a platform for your audio as well. So you really can go and put that audio in lots of different places. And, you know, you've got so many different places where your band can live on the internet, you know, whether it's the people in the title of the panel who I won't mention, or whether it's Facebook or Twitter. You know, the one common thing is that your fans or your listeners want to use and they want to hear that, that audio. So whereas, you know, if you do take something like, let's say MySpace, then, you know, before, like, the whole thing about that social network is that like, we take this concept of a social network having a social object. So with something like MySpace, the social object is the band. You know, on Bandcamp or Topspin, the social object might be something that you're actually then selling, or on Twitter it's a tweet, on Flickr it's a photo. On SoundCloud, the important thing is that that object is your audio. So we build our whole service around that audio and then allowing you to put it in different places. So that means you can put it on MySpace, that means you can put it on Twitter, you can put it on Facebook, you can give it to the blogs. But we also allow you really easily to connect with a lot of other great services that do all these. We don't build the amazing, you know, like, you know, fan mail systems. We don't build the amazing, you know, Facebook pages and different things that you need to market your music. But what we do allow you to do is just host your audio like in the cloud once, and then go and connect it to all those different places. And I mean, there is the kind of, you know, the shoelaces in the shoe.
It's cool, man. It's just like we seem to have just got the product right, and the rest just falls into place. So yeah, 1/2 past. How much time have we got? 15, 20 minutes. So we go to questions, but my eyesight, the people at the back are going to be screwed, so I can't see, so just want to push that out. But we will go with question. Yeah?
Hi, my name's Phil Nelson. I've been a full-time artist manager for over 20 years. Starting with the Levelers back in the 80s, who were very much into the direct artist to fan thing, before we even had email or mobile phones. And I now manage people at Aqualung and Duke Special and a band called Rams Pocket Radio who are playing tomorrow. The one thing that kind of confuses me when I tell people that I'm really into direct artist to fan stuff is the next thing they always say to me is, oh, who does that for you? And I think that the one thing as a manager that kind of does my head in is the fact that most people who are doing interesting things are trying to find their piece of the cake. And I see in some ways Bandcamp, Topspin, to a degree SoundCloud, as a piece of the cake. It's a piece of the income. Now obviously if you're a brand new artist, the last thing you want to be spending money on is building your own web shop. But once you're doing a certain amount of either commerce or giving music away for email addresses or whatever. It's not difficult to do it directly from your website, and the only person you're giving money to is your credit card company if you're not going through PayPal. And I know a bit about Topspin, and I use Bandcamp for my artists before I get to the point where I build web shops. But do you see where I'm coming from, and can you see my frustration at the fact that it feels that nearly everything that we discuss at things like The Great Escape are people who are trying to take a slice of the cake away from the artist and the manager?
Absolutely. I think this is exactly the point that Will was saying before with the make or buy decision. And that make or buy decision is based on your own resources and your own capabilities. So if it's easy, like for instance, I pay a guy to mow my lawn, partly because I hate mowing the lawn, partly because I don't have a lawnmower, but also because it's cheaper for me to just give him a little bit of money every couple of weeks and to do that. You might mow your own lawn, I don't know, and I think those are the decisions that you make, and I think you've made the decision of where it hits a certain level, you know what, I know how to do this, I know how to build the code, I know how to build the web shop, I know how to get in touch with the banking agency so that I can process credit cards. I can do that. For everybody else who says, you know what, that's in the too hard basket. If somebody takes a little slice off that to do it for me, that's cool, I'd rather do that. So it isn't, should you do this or should you do that? It's complicated and it depends.
Yeah, I mean, I think that look, as I'll borrow from Al Teller, who said, there's only two people who matter in the music business: people who make music and the people who love it. And all the rest of us are in the way, period. So we either provide value or get the fuck out of the way. So if we're not providing value to you, to Andrew's point, then you certainly shouldn't use it. But I think that also to that point, there are sufficiently difficult technical systems that are also useful, right? Just because you have a studio doesn't mean that you should be building your own Pro Tools. And we've all spent a lot of time and a lot of money building software, and if we don't get paid for doing it, then we won't exist. So I think we've all tried to keep our prices as low as possible so that we can continue to exist. Based on the people that we're serving. I mean, I don't think anybody here is interested in getting a slice from the artists. And it's funny when Trent Reznor, who we blatantly stole from in the early days of the company in terms of ideas and the way that he was presenting his products, called us up and wanted to use us for his How to Destroy Angels project, for the Social Network soundtrack. I actually tried to talk him out of it. I said, I don't know why you would want to use us, because you're clearly doing fine on your own. You've built all this stuff on your own. And frankly, we're just stealing all the ideas from you anyway. You're the king of this. Why do you want to use us? You probably shouldn't. And they just said, look, we've been doing it on our own for 3 years, and it's hard, and it takes time, and it takes money, and we just want to use a platform and a team that works. And we've had great luck with them ever since. So I think we do provide value, or else they'd probably move us out of the way.
Yeah, and I would say, just speaking directly to SoundCloud's part, we've, like, right from the beginning, since we, very first launched, we were never ashamed, we went right out there saying, right, okay, this is our business. And I think we're probably unusual in that we just said, okay, we have a tool and we think that it's really good and we think that it's something worth paying for. Fortunately, we're using a freemium model, so we have 4 million users on the site, and only a small percentage of those pay. But the example I use is I have a Flickr account and a Vimeo account. On Flickr, it's because I actually started using it for free, and then I was using it more, and then it just became really helpful because it was integrated into iPhoto. I could do lots of things with it. Flickr working hard to make sure that it worked with lots of different things. So I upgraded. I now pay $30 for an account, and been a satisfied customer for a few years. With something like Vimeo, again, I was using a free account. It wasn't a storage thing. I actually had a few videos that I needed better quality of, and I wanted to track the statistics of who was watching it because they were kind of company and event orientated videos. So again, I upgraded to $30, to host my videos, and I think no one here is really trying to take an unfair share, and I think as long as it's really transparent, from the outset, what you're doing, why you're making money. And again, for SoundCloud, we don't monetize any of your audience, and we don't monetize any of your content. So we don't sell anything, we don't sell adverts against, which sometimes confuses people. It's like, whoa, okay, so you're not going to advertise against my music, and you know, we're really upfront with that and just saying, okay, this is a tool for creators. You know, we're focused on building something for you. You know, and if you're using it a lot and you're getting a lot of value out of it, then you know we're going to charge you.
This is the thing to bear in mind about all of these things is that these companies were started by entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs make money by solving problems for people. And that's really what it comes down to. But the really interesting thing about that is, I mean, there have been entrepreneurs forever, but the word that you hear most from these guys is sustainability and not profitability. And yeah, everybody wants to make lots and lots of money, and that's really cool, but what they want more than anything, particularly because this is such uncharted territory, this is so new for so many people, we just want to make this in a way that is sustainable, that for everybody, so that it actually works for everybody, because you know, I think the one thing that we can all kind of get on board with is that we want things to be better for music. Not just better for your music or better for your bank balance through making music, but we want more music in more places by more people, for more audiences, for more value out of music. And then I think, you know, there are lots of opportunities to solve problems and create things that will make money.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for that question. It's deep, it's just been pitched it right. What I'm feeling from this is it's just better matchmaking going on. People are finding what they want to do with the right tools to do it. And that just makes me wonder, music history's past, how much bad matchmaking's happened there. And it's...
Yeah, I mean, the great part about all of it is that artists have more choice than ever. I mean, if anything, people are overwhelmed by choice, where, you know, it used to be, I gotta get signed, I gotta get signed, I gotta get signed.
I summarize that by saying some choice is better than no choice, but doesn't necessarily follow that more choice is better than some. Okay, so another question.
There was one right at the back there.
Okay, shout out.
Yeah, I was just wondering, if I got you a half-price deal on the EMI, would you be interested in buying it?
Nationalise it.
Never a debtor or a lender be, but just don't lend.
I do have a plan if somebody wants to bankroll that for me.
Another question?
Can I just ask, was anyone from the MySpace team invited to join this panel discussion today? And what are you doing with your own businesses to avoid, in 5 years' time, us having exactly the same discussion about the death of Soundcloud, Bandcamp, etc.?
Right, so the first part, we researched all of them, and I've got to tell you that they were all really cooperative. So up until last night, Reverb Nation was hitting me up with observations about their pricing structure, and MySpace has been in touch with their pricing structures and so on. So, and we've done a bunch of work with Music Ally, who are just fantastic, to try and get the comprehensive report on what is the lay of the land here. So we've tried to follow all of them, and it's just through luck that we managed to pick 3 to represent here. The second point's a really interesting one. I call it the shark fin effect, when services just rocket to critical mass and suddenly dive bomb really quickly. And Beeble, classic example, where 3 years ago Beeble was going to change the world, and where is it now? And I don't know, that's a good one to throw around this panel here, which is, you mentioned sustainability, but
Really
who is to say 5 years' time you guys are all rest in peace and there's a bunch of new services?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like to claim otherwise would be to be able to sort of say, well, I can predict the future. I mean, I don't know if you notice in the delegates lobby, there's a board you can pin your thoughts up on that says, you know, what's this going to be like in 5 years' time? What's that going to be like in 5 years' time? And I stuck a thing at the top of it saying, sorry, not psychic. Because, you know, you don't know that stuff, but you can see with the benefit of hindsight where something like MySpace went horribly wrong. And honestly, I genuinely believe that they could turn it around. Still, if you put me in charge of MySpace, I genuinely believe I could make it work. Because there are some things that they don't. But the first thing you'd have to do is unsell it to Fox. Because they're a broadcast organisation. That's not how the internet works. The internet's a conversational medium. And Fox is a broadcasting organisation. So what they do is they put broadcast advertising across every artist's page. I mean, they've got, let's be honest, they've got every frickin' band on the planet, and they're not servicing them at all. And what they're doing is they're putting broadcast advertising, because that's what they understand, on all of these bands' pages. So, like, I went to the U2 page and I was researching that article, and I actually spoke to the head of music at MySpace when I was kind of writing this blog post that was referred to. And you go to U2's page, and there is a banner ad at the top of U2's, and you know U2 are kind of the socially conscious, you know, responsible band, and there's a banner ad for this kind of suspiciously cheap children's clothing. And there is no way that they decided what was going to be advertised in their name to their fans And that's where MySpace is screwed up. It's not, I mean, yeah, they screwed up social networking, and Facebook does it better. Yeah, they screwed up trying to sort of push things, like trying to just, like music, MySpace Music are still angling to the major record labels when they've got something like 5 million artists signed under contract to MySpace.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that was the moment that I knew the fix was in, and it was a long time ago. Was when they announced the deal with Interscope, and you know, no offense to MySpace or Interscope, but I was at Yahoo Music at the time, and we were always looking over our shoulders trying to figure out what MySpace was doing, and then they announced a record label deal with Interscope, and I went, wait, you have millions of artists, and your move is you're going to release 9 of them through traditional channels? Oh, we have nothing to worry about.
Sounds a good day.
I was literally running around the office excited.
But they still have lots and lots, I mean not all of them, you know, a lot of people, some of them hopefully on my recommendation have closed their MySpace page because it's toxic. But they still have a lot of artists, and if they went, you know what, screw this kind of, you know, trying to sell Madonna's album to 50,000 people at a time, let's just let artists do what artists do and connect with their fans, because that's actually what I mean, as bad as the software is, as bad as the design is, as bad as everything else is, they've got all the artists, and if they let, you know, if they got out of the way and let them communicate with fans, they could do amazing things, but they're just not going to, because that's not in their DNA as a broadcasting organisation.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean 2 points on that, like one specific and one general. I mean, first of all, for SoundCloud's part, I mean, one part of our job is we're actually heavily like a technology company. I'd say probably 85–90% of our staff are just really focused on the product. And I think, if you do have a company and then you suddenly switch your attention to, oh, how do we monetize the audience? How do we sell more adverts? How do we do whatever? I think you tend to lose a bit of the focus, and I think it's on us to make sure, we've done, all of us collectively, and I love the way the Bandcamp site is put together. All of us have looked at the new technology and said, oh, actually, wow, this is how we can do things. We can really, put things in front of your audiences. We can use the best technologies out there, etc. So for SoundCloud, it's really making sure that we're like completely bang up to date with the latest technology. This year we've got a really big push into mobile, and we're embracing, all of the web standards and seeing where it's going as well. Not just thinking about where it is now, but trying to anticipate what it's going to be in 6 months' time. I think a more general point, and this isn't, well, actually I do think it's relevant for most of the audience, is that we're living in a time when everyone's switching from consuming to creating. So I just think there's this huge wave of people who are going to be creating audio, whether it's music, stories, poetry, whatever. And those people need an audience. I know we've talked a lot about monetizing the music and what's the product. But a lot of people just, for example, so many people use SoundCloud and they pay for the service, even though they don't actually have anything to sell. They might just be bedroom producers. And the fact that we have the web, the fact that you can build your own audience, that really stimulates creativity. The one anecdote that I always use is Instagram. And that's a story about photos, but I used to take photos. It used to be really boring holiday snaps, and I would just take the photos, and every now and then I would show them to someone and then put them back away in the dusty cupboard. But now I'm walking around with a device where at any point I can take out Instagram, make a snap of something, and actually make it look pretty good. It's not just a really boring shot. And I think Dub has been walking around with Hipstermatic all day doing a similar thing. But the thing for me is the internet allows me to have an audience, albeit an extremely small, and tight-knit audience. But the fact that I have Instagram, every time I get a pop-up notification on my phone saying, "Oh, Dub just loved your photo," that stimulates me to want to create more photos. And I think for us, for music, we're talking about business here, but fundamentally we should hopefully all be excited about, stimulating creativity and rewarding bands. And I don't think rewarding bands is just about, when are they going to sell their next, X, Y, Z. It's also about giving them an audience and allowing them to create and allowing them to share. So, like looking into the future, hopefully that's one thing that we can enable, is this just new wave of, people, creating and sharing online.
For sure. Are we taking another question?
Yeah, hi, I'm a manager and I run a label in Dublin, in Ireland.
about the future again, it seems likely that people will less and less download music in units as they become able to stream things that they don't physically own digitally. Like Pandora's going into Fords in the States, I understand.
Yep.
So what does that mean? Obviously SoundCloud is about users streaming audio that they don't own anyway. But what will that mean for Bandcamp, which is primarily about selling units? And what will it mean for Topspin in terms of that portion of the commerce?
I think it's a good question. I'll start if you don't mind, because I've thought about this a bunch over the past couple of weeks, particularly after seeing Thomas Hesse speak at Rethink Music a couple weeks ago. And I'll just share this with you. I thought it was really fascinating hearing him, because he very clearly laid out what Sony Music's digital strategy is at the moment. And it's interesting because you can kind of see what if we're at the creator end of the value chain, you can kind of see what these consumer services are shaping up to be. He alluded to two categories of music services. One is effectively a rental model, and the other one is a purchase and store model. So the rental model is clearly Spotify and RDO and Mog, and he named Rhapsody. He named all these by name. He also said specifically a subscription service plus a social network would be really compelling. And we can assume he's talking about Spotify plus Facebook, right? So that's one class. The other one, and it was interesting because it's just 2 weeks ago, but he talked about download services and the accompanying locker service. And he specifically called out a licensed locker, and he talked about the reasons for a licensed locker. So the events of the last 48 hours are pretty interesting. It was, at the time seemed like a dig against Amazon, but I think maybe he knew where Google was going already at the time as well. So I think that we know, look, these are no small players. The players in the space are going to be people like Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon. These are not small companies. These services are going to exist. They're going to be licensed. That will all get worked out, and they're going to work. We are for sure not going to plug our phones into our computers and transfer files across the wire in 5 years' time, right? So I think that, yes, streaming services will be the way we kind of get that commodity product. But I think that, a lot of what we're all doing is kind of dealing with the non-commodity product and the non-commodity relationships that come with that. So it's the direct relationships that you have with the artists, not with the services, as well as the things that you can't just stream. So the box sets and vinyl and whatever. There's at Topspin, 50% of what we sell by volume is digital only, and 70+% of the money that comes in is for something that's physical. So I think that you might just see that 50-50 number drop, but I think and the physical number increase.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about this. The first one is, again, to reiterate that I'm not actually able to predict the future. So, but I think there are some really interesting things going on. The first thing I'd raise a flag is to say that recordings of music are not music. There was a story I was telling just at lunchtime where I'm doing this research project. I work at a university. I'm doing a research project about jazz across Europe, and we got a bunch of the researchers together, and we're all talking about, really love that album, or I went and saw this guy in concert, or that solo is really brilliant. There was this kind of austere Austrian